EAGLES, Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to the Thursday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen. Fresh wrapping up Eagles mandatory minicamp. Their 2 days are now in the rearview mirror. Johnny Mac was down there for both of them. J-Mac, how you doing on this Thursday morning, my friend?
Doing well. Recovering from a poor offensive performance at mandatory minicamp. Whoa. It's a process, as Nick Sirianni said.
Uh-oh. How bad was this offense that you're recovering?
It's not starting quickly. Yeah, it's not good, man. It's not good. Now, there's a lot of caveats, most notably that it's very early in the process. It's not that important. But what you're seeing is not good. And maybe it's just building the foundation of a new offense. And maybe it'll eventually click. But all you can talk about is what you saw, and what I saw was not good. And I was thinking about it, and people always say, well, Jalen this, Jalen that. None of the quarterbacks have been good. None. Jalen's the best. None of them. The only one who processes quickly is Andy Dalton, and sometimes he processes too quickly because he makes his decision and he's throwing the ball no matter what, and sometimes it gets picked. The other guys are all hesitant. The last 2 days, Cole Payton has looked a disaster, so I would not worry about keeping 4 quarterbacks, but that's irrelevant. Jalen has not looked comfortable. Tanner has not looked good. He finally got some second-team reps, at least, for all the talk about. And he was better than Andy Dalton yesterday, but that kind of, when Andy gets second-team reps, he's better than Tanner McKee. So that might be just a representative nature of who you're playing with. And that also affects Cole Payton even more so, who gets maybe 5-6 reps of practice with developmental guys. So maybe that explains some of his struggles. And Devontae Smith wasn't there. You have guys in and out. Mekhi Lemon hasn't been practicing because of the hamstring injury. So your top trio of receivers are Dontavian Wicks, Hollywood Brown, and Elijah Moore. I mean, now that's not going to be the case. So I'm trying to figure out, there's like 3 downfield completions yesterday in a full practice that I counted. There was about 6 or 7 dump offs to Will Shipley, big Will Shipley day. So I say, who performed the best on Will Shipley? I don't know what else to say.
Is there a common denominator as to why it looks poor under all quarterbacks? I mean, what is it? What are you seeing that every quarterback doesn't look good in this offense? Are they not being taught it correctly? Is there a learning curve on implementing it?
There's obviously a learning curve. Everybody's hesitant, with the exception of Andy Dalton. Everybody's very hesitant. And, to go through the progressions because there's more pure progression than before. So, and with Tanner specifically, I saw that he threw the football on one to Will Shipley 3 consecutive times. It was bang. First read's not there, went to Will Shipley. It wasn't like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was like not there, Will Shipley, like a security blanket. So, I would say hesitant is the word to describe them. And, Nick, Jeff Kerr just texted me before the show, and he's like, what do you think? Grade? Because he got a grade. He's got, everybody's got a grade. I'm like,
yeah, right.
He's like, what do you think of the offense? B-. That's sort of what you do. If it's not good, like, that's being fucking kind, man. It's been bad.
Well, why is Jeff Kerr giving him a B- then?
Well, because that's what you do in draft grades. You don't want to say F, because you're not taking into context of the the process, and it is a process, and it's, guys are in, guys are out. Devontae Smith's not. He was excused for personal reasons. So in theory, your two of your top receivers aren't out there. Eli Stowers barely practiced. Not that he was doing anything when he was practicing. There's a lot of 13 personnel because the receivers, they had 4 tryout receivers playing because they need bodies because Brenton Covey's hurt as well. The running backs and offensive line aren't that relevant, so you can't learn a lot. More you can learn. The Eagles finally signed Michael Jordan. They pulled the trigger on that. Not the basketball player, the football player we talked about during rookie tryout. I was surprised they didn't sign him earlier. But what that tells you is they're looking behind the scenes and saying, all right, well, Miles Hinton, we're trying to move him. He's not ready. We're trying to move, Micah Morris isn't going to be ready. So they're bringing in Michael Jordan. Now he's still got to prove he can make the team. It's not a guarantee, but he started 45 NFL games. Signed A.J. Epinesa as well.
Yeah, I saw that. We're going to talk about that a little bit later.
So, that's an idea. But the deep and turn the coin, and it's part of yin and yang. Well, the offense stinks. The defenses look like world beaters. So maybe I'm overrating them.
Well, which might be propped up by the offense stinking or yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh,
the
gosh.
Yin and yang, it looks like, the fearsome foursome or the purple people eaters or the steel curtain out there. So what I'm trying to say is, it's probably not, it's always not as bad as you think. It's always not as good as you think. And this is a perfect indication. The offense isn't going to be this bad. And the defense isn't going to be that good. But for 4 days in the spring, with no pads, I mean, it is a slow start for the Evil Geniuses offense.
Jeez. John, not only are you saying that, but I'm pretty sure in unison, every single reporter that I read anything from yesterday, including our buddy BLG, who was on the program, Caden Steele, who will join us later on, not many good reviews of the offense so far. I get it is too early, so I don't want to sound like we're being, we're jumping off the cliff here on the offense. But it's worse than the alternative, I'd say.
Oh, well, I mean, if they were playing well, it'd be more optimistic. Not that it would mean that much more. But I've been through a lot of these things, and this is probably the slowest start I can recall.
And is that just built in because of the learning curve of the new offense?
Maybe it's as simple as
brings
that.
Up another question of, trying to teach a whole new thing might not have been the best idea in the first place, especially when you have, older veteran players on the offensive side of the ball. But I digress on that. Is that what it comes down to, though, John, right now, where they're trying to learn and implement this, and they're not comfortable yet? I don't know how comfortable they'll be by week 1, but is that kind of what you're seeing?
Yeah, well, certainly with the quarterbacks and the hesitancy, like I said, that's the word. That's my theme word. They're all hesitant, with the exception of Andy, who has some experience in every offense. Never mind this offense, but everybody's hesitant. So, you can look at it a different way. The offensive line seems reinvigorated, from the change. I mean, they really do. Cam was talking yesterday, Lane the other day. They seem really excited. And they're healthier. So, I mean, if you have a top 5 offensive line, that's going to fix a lot of your problems right away.
Agreed.
So, I'm not saying it's time to jump off bridges. I think there's a good chance that offensive line's going to be top tier again if guys stay healthy. But, they're healthy. They're out there. They're not rehab. Cam Jurgens is out there every day. Landon Dickerson's out there every day. Lane Johnson obviously, doesn't do all the voluntary stuff. but he's out there every day during minicamp. And they seem just reinvigorated. And that's not a shot at Jeff Stoutland. That's just because they've been doing the same thing for so long. When you change it up, you get out of a little bit of a rut, and they seem just pumped up by it. So I think, there's not a lot of on-field positives, but if you're looking for positives, that would be for the offense. That would be number one for me, is they seem excited by it.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. How about the health? Obviously, we've had a lot of concern and focus on Cam and Landon. Cam spoke yesterday. Thought he had some good comments. How do they look health-wise, John? And just in terms of movement, lateral movement, how does Landon and Cam look? And Lane?
Yeah, I mean, I could lie to you, but this is not the time to judge offensive line. I can say they look happy, in that, and I say that not flippantly. I say that because, Landon Dickerson looked miserable a lot of the time last year because he was miserable from a health standpoint.
Yeah.
And he's happy and he's out there flexing, showing off his big arms. So, I mean, he feels better. So maybe the Medellin stem cells are coming through.
Maybe they are, but at least they're not visibly nursing the injuries right now to you.
Exactly.
All right. That's good. That's good for the offensive line. John, how about on the defensive side? You said a lot of good and a lot of positive there. I'm reading a lot on Tariq Woolen, who just continues to have a great offseason. What are you seeing on the defensive side?
How did the league give Tariq Woolen to the Eagles? That's my number one. Obviously there's got to be something, because the player that's been out there this spring looks like one of the best cornerbacks in football, and he's opposite one of the best cornerbacks in football, in Quinyon Mitchell, who, by the way, again, small sample size, 4 practices. I don't think they've completed a pass down the field on Quinyon Mitchell. Not one. A couple dump offs in front.
Man, Quinyon Mitchell, he's a special player. Great mindset too. I loved that quote, John, when he spoke a couple days ago. I'm not an all-pro. That was last year. That was a great quote.
Well, that's like a little bit of an AJ mentality. You're always looking for the next thing. You're never satisfied. And I think that's something great players have in common. But I mean, he doesn't give up anything. It's almost like I think people have to always they jump way too in the deep end of the pool with cornerbacks. This guy's a lockdown corner. This guy's a lockdown corner. Because all corners get beat. He doesn't get beat much. He's gotten beaten. Obviously, we've seen it. Saw it in the playoffs. And they do all get beat, but which again speaks to the offense. I mean, I literally can't remember a downfield pass over 4 practices completed on Quinyon Mitchell. Now, is that Quinyon Mitchell? Partly. Is that the offense? Partly. That's what I'm saying. So, there's a yin and yang to this a little bit. But it seems, they've taken some shots at Reek. And there were a couple deep shots, and Devontae Smith had a step on him, but they weren't able to complete them. And he's had a bunch of splash plays with interceptions. He had a great interceptions yesterday, And it was Dallas Goedert was sort of on a crossing route that people would have loved. And you say, oh, this is going to be a big play down the field. And he just showed all of it off, the 4.26 speed and the 6'7" wingspan, and it just evaporated the spacing.
Boy, and man, it sounds like the upside on these cornerbacks is just through the roof.
And that's the NFL, man. When you said, and that's when you talk about hesitancy, if that thing's a tick late, here comes this big praying mantis in the middle of the field.
Yeah, gazelle who can run, that's incredible. It's true, though. It's a good point. That's why the hesitancy is not going to work.
Yeah. So if it's even a tick late, worst case it's the best case it's a pass breakup. Worst case it's going the other way. But yeah, it's hard not to be excited about Reek Woolen with this defense and Quinion and Cooper in the slot. I mean, that's ridiculous.
How do those backers look? It was obviously Bond, and I'm pretty sure it was Trotter yesterday, right? Still no Jahad Campbell out there.
No, Jihad's wasn't expected to be ready until training camp, but he's out there. He's rehabbing. He looks fine. He's doing stuff with social media. He's joking around, so he'll be ready to go.
Yeah.
But Jeremiah Trotter's gotten most of the first team reps, and Chance Campbell's a guy people should start to think about his name because they like him a lot. And they have good depth at linebacker. There's something going on with Joe Tryon, Shoenka, which I can't.
Yeah, he missed again.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he signed a 1-year deal. He's not holding out. So something's going on, whether it's personal health reasons, but I don't know. But the fact that they brought in AJ Epinesa, just highlights that. He's a pretty good player. Now he's got his own health problems. He had signed a $5 million deal with Cleveland and failed his physical. So obviously the Eagles, maybe it just took a little bit more time. But they're obviously comfortable enough. Probably doesn't help Brandon Graham either, by the way.
Definitely not. That was my thought when the signing came down.
Yeah, so I mean he can play a little bit. He's a good rotational player if he's healthy.
I think I remember you referencing him as a potential name they could sign back when they were looking for some depth. Yeah.
So, but when you sign guys, there's some issue, and it's not as obvious. On the offensive line with Michael Jordan, it's obvious. I mean, and again, you're not even gauging. So basically what you're gauging with offensive line is individual drills and how they move and technique and fundamentals. And, before the pads come on, you can't really judge much, but obviously Chris Cooper, that's his job now. And is probably looking at it and saying what I've said on this show multiple times, they don't have any veteran depth inside. And Drew Kendall was back after missing a couple days team drills. He's number one. And then they're trying to move Miles Hinton inside, and who hasn't played and is changing positions. And then you have a rookie 6th-round pick. So, I mean, no surprise they brought somebody in. Thought they would have brought in Michael Jordan a little bit quicker because he was here on a tryout basis during rookie camp. But, maybe it's one of those things. Veteran guy doesn't want to go through the nonsense of the spring and take a little bit of a vacation, and he signs and he'll be there for camp. And not that he's going to make the team, but as I said, he started 45 NFL games. So,
right.
I mean,
that's pretty significant. That's a lot of games.
Yeah. So, as opposed to one, if you talk about that top trio, and that was the meaningless Week 18 game last year. Think about that. Drew Kendall, Miles Hinton, Micah Morris. One NFL start in a meaningless atmosphere. So I didn't think they'd be comfortable with that, and shouldn't be surprised they weren't comfortable with that.
Fair enough. John, school's out for summer for the Eagles now. Is there any positive? Is there any silver lining on the offense that you can give for fans to feel better
the offensive line, like I said, they're hyped up.
That's good. I'll take that as a silver lining.
I think Saquon's looked like he's got juice, which I think is positive.
How much different do you expect them to use him this year in terms of tapping into maybe some of his other parts of his skill set, catching the ball, things of that nature?
Well, there's going to be a lot more dump offs, I think.
There has been in practice so far, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to wait and see with Jalen. I could say it if it were Tanner, I could say it a million times. I could say there's going to be a lot of dump offs. But Jalen's never been somebody who enjoys that, so would prefer to extend the play. So you have to wait and see, but certainly there's built in to be a lot more dump offs. And I think that could really help Will Shipley. I really do. So, because he's the one guy who can catch the football.
Yeah, right. What you've said for a while.
Yeah. But he's got to do it, man. When he gets opportunities, he's got to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Hasn't had a lot of opportunities. John, how did the tight ends look?
Dallas looks great. I think Dallas is maybe the best fit for this offense, just from a trait standpoint. And they have a history of utilizing tight ends well. And then after that, it's like, the second most impressive tight end this spring was E.J. Jenkins. And he dropped one yesterday. And that was his problem last year. And that was a little bit disappointing because he's got to make sure he cleans that up. But, he's a guy who has the ability to block. Everybody talks about it behind the scenes, how good he's gotten. And he's a former receiver in college, so he's got receiving ability. Grant was out for the past couple of days in minicamp. He wasn't able to practice. He's injured. Eli has done, people say, why don't you talk about Eli Stowers? Because he's done nothing. Johnny Munn had a drop yesterday, but he's the blocker.
What do you mean when you say he's done nothing? Where are they physically lining him up at practice? The third team? Second team?
Well, he didn't practice. He had a sleeve on his right leg, so I think he got banged up, or maybe a hammy for him. So he didn't do much in team drills yesterday. But when in previous flex spot, flex tight end. And that they do use this 13 personnel bunch formation, and they used him. Ironically, they used him as a decoy to get. I think it wasn't the Cam Latu they got. That was yesterday. I forget which guy they got loose, but it wasn't Eli. It wasn't designed. He was the decoy. But mainly third team, second, third team, going back and forth when he was healthy. Now, and by the way, I'm not saying he can't be a good player, but I just said from the start, to me, it's more about 2027 and moving forward with Eli Stowers. He's still got a lot of work. And he's got to, get in the weight room. Everybody says he shows a willingness to block, which is very positive, but he's got to get better, or he's just a gimmick player in that aspect of it. And that's not what you want when you're picking somebody in the second round. So he's got to improve that part of his game. Maybe they'll have some packages for him at some point as he learns the system. But in minicamp, I'm saying he hasn't done anything, so it's hard to talk about.
I like I like the potential of the player, John. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense why they went that direction now that you're seeing what they're trying to implement. I don't know. Maybe that was just
Well, I think it makes some sense, but again, maybe not immediately, because they know,
Yeah, but in theory, John, even like in the future, let's say 2 years out, and he's the tight end one. Don't you still want a tight end that can block?
Well, they think he can. That's the projection part of it.
All right.
He's got a big body. He's got a big frame. He's got He's got room to add weight and strength. Everybody says he's willing, including his college coaches. He was a quarterback, 3 years ago. So I think the presumption is, well, he's not physical. But I don't think that's his problem. I think his problem is he just doesn't have the time on task doing it. When you talk about a 6'4" guy who can probably get up to 250 with his athleticism, I think long term it's going to be a great pick. But I think short term, I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to have trouble getting on the field a lot this season.
Feels rich for a second-round pick, but I digress on that. All right, good stuff, Johnny Mac. John, let's keep rolling here. Yesterday, Nick Sirianni spoke. Jalen Hurts spoke. A couple other players spoke to the media. We will talk about that. I do want to ask you specifically about Nick Sirianni's comments on Jalen Carter not participating in team drills. Kind of evaded the question a little bit. I don't know if you have his full answer there. I can try and get it up here, but what was your takeaway from what Nick Sirianni had to say yesterday, and then specifically on Jalen Carter missing team drills? Sounds like some Drew Rosenhaus going on to me, J-Mac.
Yeah, it was a non-answer answer kind of, From a health standpoint, he probably could be practicing, but he's not practicing because of the contract, and they're working through an extension. And as I said, it's a little bit more difficult than people think, with the assumption it's obviously you'll have the Carter side and Drew pushing for setting the market, and he's coming off a season where the play on the field does not demand setting the market. So is there a middle ground? Obviously, he's going to get paid a lot of money. It's just a matter of how much. Now, I've advocated, just kick the can down the road and say to Drew Rosenhaus, and the Eagles have a long history and there's a lot of trust there. So, say basically, we'll set the market, but we got to see this year. We got to see if he's healthy. We got to see if he's, don't spit on people. You got to be on the field, basically. Yeah. And then we'll
been on the field. I don't say this to knock Carter at all, because he's obviously
he didn't play well, but he didn't play well because he was hurt. And that's
I know, but John, even in 24, he was a great player, obviously, in 24. Was he a $40 million player? I don't know that we've ever seen that in his career. I mean, we're talking about the elite of the elite.
Well, we've never seen a $40 million player at defensive tackle. So has he been the best defensive tackle?
Well, what's he want? 35?
Well, they want to set the market. So, I mean, they want to be number one. And should he be number one? No, but that's how contracts work. It's his turn. So,
yeah, but John,
that's like
you don't just shell out top of the position money for guys who haven't necessarily proven it yet. He hasn't proven it yet.
That's how contracts work. I mean, Jalen Hurts for 10 days was the highest paid player in the history of football. Was he ever the best quarterback?
Was second in the MVP voting.
Wait, was he ever the best quarterback? Now, I know there's a lot of Jalenites. He wasn't. I mean, but that's how contracts work. Now, if you talk about Jalen Carter, yeah, I mean, people thought in 2024 that he was one of the best certainly top 5 defensive tackle. So, I mean, that's the next step. You're up.
Just feels like having him play another year makes the most sense. But maybe
it makes the most sense from the Eagles' standpoint,
for
sure. Doubt.
Yeah.
But I mean, you want it as quickly as possible. Which is understandable for the player standpoint as well. So there's a lot of angst if I would be cautious. Like one thing about what I just used the Jalen comparison just from the player perspective, but you also like Jalen's not gonna. Part of the reason Jeffrey Lurie loves him so much. He's a class guy. He's gonna represent the organization well.
Yes.
True. He's a hard worker, the most mature at the time 25-year-old he's ever seen. That was the quote, whatever. You don't have some of the, and I don't want to even say off the field, but you don't have some of those concerns with Jalen Hurts that you might have with Jalen Carter. But otherwise, I mean, just from the play standpoint, it's difficult because he's coming off a bad year. But he's coming off a bad year because of his injuries to both shoulders. So a lot of it is, well, A, you got to trust your medical people. Is this a big time problem or is he just going to be healthy? All we can tell from the Ben Simmons videos is he's lifting weights, and that's a positive because he wasn't able to lift weights last year.
Right.
And if he turns back into the 2024 version of Jalen Carter, who wasn't the best defensive tackle in the game, but was on his way and certainly has maybe the most gifts of any defensive tackle, I think you're very comfortable with it. But last year, I mean, he was getting pushed around. Now, I've never seen Jalen Carter get pushed around before, so that's why I lean towards, yeah, he's just not healthy. So if he gets healthy, but they want the money now, and you probably want to wait.
Well, when are you thinking that deal will come?
Well, that's hard to predict. If you think about hold in, so to speak, there's two options. One is legitimate and it could go to training camp and it could even go further than that if you're willing to take some of the fines and or you can hold in a training camp. People have done that, just not practice, but show up. Or it could be an indication that it's coming and saying, all right, we're going to get it. Maybe there's some language you got to work out, but you've agreed on money and all that kind of stuff. And he's going to sign in a couple weeks or a couple days and say, let's not push it in minicamp. Those are generally the two options. But I've been saying for a while, this is a more difficult negotiation than people are making it out to be. You got to just make him the highest paid player. I wouldn't do that. The highest paid defensive tackle. And if I'm Drew Rosenhaus, though, I would ask for that. No, it's pretty difficult.
Yeah, but if you're the Eagles, you still have the leverage. I mean, I wouldn't just go because the agent wants him. I mean, that's normal for the agent to want it.
Your leverage on the player side is what he's doing. You're like, all right, I'll show up, but I'm not practicing. That's your leverage.
Yeah, but what's he going to do? Hold out if you don't give him the contract this summer?
Hold in. It's potential.
During the season?
Yeah, you've seen it. It happens all the time.
All right, I don't think it normally doesn't end all that well. You might get the money, but it certainly has an impact on the football field.
Well, I wouldn't say, maybe a game or two. That's as far as you're going to push it. But certainly start a camp. I mean, guys hold in all the time as negotiations. It's become a thing in the NFL. It hasn't happened in Philadelphia because they usually they're usually very proactive, but this one's a little bit different because of the season he's coming off of. In the injury.
If I forced you to say that, who blinks first here?
I think Carter's camp. I think, and I have to look at defensive tackles, which I think, Chris Jones is still number one, I think.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. I'm
So
pretty sure you're right.
I
31.
think it's easy to get above Chris Jones, quite frankly, which is
Well, I think
30.
Howie's rightfully so, thinking about everything that's coming. I mean, there's going to be more contracts on the offense coming with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, or not Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith. Potentially, you got Cooper, Quinion, Carter. Edge rushers are out there. Grenard just got paid. I mean, there's a lot of guys to pay on this football team, man. A lot.
Yeah, and he's one of them. So, you have to go above Milton and Jordan, and they both got 26. So obviously, and they're 3 and 4. Eagle and ex-Eagle. And then you have an Eagle who will be number 1. I think it's easy to get above 31.75. The question is, Drew's probably wants to explode it to 40, and they're probably in the, all right, we'll give them 32, 33. And put him ahead of Chris Jones. So I think that's what you're talking about, but and if it wasn't, you also have to indicate, I think, from the player standpoint that like you want to get it done now versus I'm willing to wait, which is a little bit different because that's what they did with Jordan Davis, but Jordan Davis exploded what would be this year for Jalen Carter.
Right. Exactly.
And he wasn't in the position of having the resume that Jalen Carter had before. So, this is more of a, I've already been an all-pro player, second team. I've already been a Pro Bowl player. That's why.
Yeah, but there is the down year, so you're kind of relying again back on the hope thing. And then how much do you think the character stuff comes into play when you're considering that part of it? It's one thing to pay a guy Jalen Hurts on hope. The character is not a problem. He's going to work his ass off. He's going to do the things necessary. I'm not saying Carter won't do that, but there is some baggage on Carter as compared to some other players. How much do you think that is a factor here in the Eagles' thought process?
Yeah, that's where Dom comes in. That's a tough one to answer. I've always thought he's a very nice person. I always thought he's very humble for his status and how he's treated and how people talk about him. A little bit immature, but he's a young person. Obviously, we know the tragedy with the driving, but how many of these fucking guys just speed like lunatics? His just happened to end in tragedy, and I'm not trying by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm just and you're the better guy to answer that question because you're a car guy and you know how young people are, and all they want to do is you get Nolan Smith, and there's 30 guys around the league that have had violations, and I'm being conservative.
And there's thousands who haven't been caught with anything.
Exactly. It's part of a culture that, unfortunately, older people like me aren't going to understand because at some point you got to mature and you don't do shit like that. But it's hard to point to every single who's doing it. And so I don't know how to fix that problem. The other stuff I think has been overblown. Like when you talk about the spitting incident, that's immature. You got to control your emotions. Same thing as Reek Woolen in the NFC Championship game. All right, dude, settle the fuck down. But I don't think that's character related.
No, I think that was more optics. That was a really bad look for the Eagles. Think about it. Jeffrey Lurie has a banner dropping in his stadium, with the whole world, NFL community watching for game 1 of the year, and not even the game didn't even start yet. And one of your best players gets ejected to start the year. I think that was – I agree with you. I think that one really soured Jeffrey Lurie's taste because of the optics of that.
Yeah, but I'm not going to demean his character for that.
I agree with you about that. I do. I agree with you about that.
Some people will, but that's fine. And the Target thing wasn't even him. It was his girlfriend or whatever. But
yeah, but you are the company you keep, John.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. And I said there's a little immaturity there. Hopefully the switch clicks on. Guys with his talent are going to get more chances, no doubt about it. But yeah, you're not you don't think about Jalen Hurts in that way. You think about, all right, maybe you can't do this as well as you'd like on the football field, but the other stuff, you don't have to worry about.
That's for sure.
And yeah, but I would say that's more rare than the other side. That's the exception.
How much do you think Moro Jomo has a factor in this conversation for the Eagles? Because it's not like, I'm not saying Moro Jomo is obviously not the player that Carter is. But
I think
you do have a guy there. You do have a guy there. That's pretty good.
Only if it gets bad and you talk yourself into it. Like they've done it with AJ to a certain degree. And they say, all right, it's gotten to this point, we're going to move on. Then you start talking yourself into shit. Well, Devontae's number one, and Dontavian Wicks can do this, and Mekhi Lemon can do that. So it would be the same thing if you have to trade Jalen Carter. Like I said, it's an interesting conversation. Would you rather have Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and let Moro walk, or would you rather have Jordan Davis, Moro Jomo, and another first-round pick, or a first-round pick and something more?
Right.
And you don't have to pay $35 million to. It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
But I think the Eagles, from their standpoint, they're going to re-sign Jalen Carter. That's the plan. But, if it goes negative to a certain degree, like it did with AJ, and you're essentially forcing yourself out, then they would start talking themselves into, well, Moro's a pretty good player. And he is.
He is.
They're not talking themselves into that. But there's a difference between a good player like Moro Jomo and Jalen Carter, just like there's a difference between a great player, Devontae Smith, and AJ Brown.
Right.
And then the bigger impact is the after those guys, because you need a 4-man rotation on the interior, and you need 4 receivers. So it's a trickle-down effect where you're not as good.
Last question on this, John. Do you feel as though the perception around the league on Carter has shifted? And what I mean by that is I think Eagle fans, me included, think, if you trade Jalen Carter, you're going to get a big old return, for him. He's a great player. You've heard some inkling, the Browns. I don't know if that was true or not. There was
it's true, but I think
that reporting there. But do you think it's maybe not? He's maybe not as valuable on the market because of some of that other bad. What's that old phrase? You're more valuable where you are than in another place, or I forget what the actual phrase is. But do you think that's going on here with Carter to some extent?
Well, you can go all the way back to the draft. He only got picked where he got picked because a lot of teams were scared to take him.
That's why I went 9.
So that's the only reason he went where he went. So, yeah, certainly, I mean, it's by nature, if you're talking about fans, they probably overvalue him to what he would get. But the Mary Kay Cabot stuff, which is completely true, the word, and everybody clicked because they don't read the whole story, is, and I've talked to some people about that, is they didn't want a defensive tackle. They wanted an edge rusher. So it becomes they wanted, and with that specific trade, that's the player they pushed for, Jared Verse, who's a very good player.
Which makes sense, by the way. You lose a Myles Garrett, and you get back Jared Verse. That's a pretty good return.
So they didn't want, and the second part is they also wanted to get more cost effective for a year or two. You don't want to bring in Jalen Carter for Myles Garrett and pay him $35 million because you got to redo the deal.
Right.
So it's very obvious why they had no interest in Jalen Carter for those reasons, not because he can't play or because they don't like him as a player. And, if Andrew Berry's the GM there, Catherine Raish is the assistant GM there, Andrew's brother works for the Eagles. Trust me, they like him as a player. They didn't want that. They didn't want a defensive tackle. They wanted an edge rusher. So the problem the Eagles would have had is they don't have a player to compare to Jared Verse on the edge that the Browns would have wanted. In other words, Nolan Smith or Jalix Hunt are good players. Jalix Hunt, potentially has a tremendously high ceiling. But if you're being honest with yourself, and it's very difficult for people to be, he ain't Jared Verse.
No, he's not, John. He's not even close. I mean, come on. But do you feel like Carter could get a 1 still in the market? I mean, is that still kind of?
Yeah, I think he could get a 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, which makes
just a 1, not. And again, depending on the team, there will be a lot of teams that don't want Jalen Carter just for the reason they didn't draft him. And, they will say, yeah, there's too many issues.
Yeah, right. Buyer's market gets a little smaller there. All right, good stuff, everybody. I want to thank you all for being here this morning. We'll talk to Caden Steele in hour number 2. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. All super chats we will read. I'm going to read 2 now, and then we'll get to the comments from Jalen Hurts yesterday. Umberto, what's up, brother? John, what do you think Epenez's impact will be? Good question there. John, your response. I am wondering if he can overtake Ebiketie as that 4th edge.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, he's got to be healthy. I mean, he signed with Cleveland on a $5 million deal, which is decent money, certainly. You're going to be a part of the rotation at that level, and he failed his physical. So, number one, I got to see how healthy he is, how much juice is left. But the guy in Buffalo who, was once a 2nd-round pick and they had high hopes for, turned into a pretty good rotational player over the years. And, he topped out with 6.5 sacks in consecutive years, had 6. So he was doing a good job in the brunt of his sort of the prime of his career in Buffalo. And that guy can help you a lot. And I would say that guy's better than Ebiketie. But I don't know if he can get back to being that guy. So a lot depends on health. And we'll see in training camp, but it's intriguing. Very long guy, tremendous arm length. So people thought, there was a chance he could develop into a big time pass rusher. Not the speediest guy, but it brings some heft to the defense as well. I've been talking about this for a year. Everybody's undersized. Nolan's undersized. Jalix is even Grenard's a little bit undersized, speed rusher. Ebiketie as well. He's like 275. Like, this is a legit old school defensive end from a size standpoint. 6'5", 275 is what they list him as. 34.5. So I think he brings something different to the table. And I think it's something that they could utilize, but you got to see if he's healthy.
Good stuff there, Umberto. Thank you, brother. Here's Anthony Hunt. Will Bigsby have a bigger role in this offense? John, what say you?
Not unless Saquon's hurt. I think this is a big Saquon Barkley year. I think it's Saquon. Now, if he gets injured, then Tank has to take advantage of that situation. But I don't think you're going to see this, because I know Zander's a proponent of that. The old school Gibbs and Montgomery and those types of setups where you have legitimate running back committee. Even now with Chicago and Monangai and Swift, Saquon's too good for that. I mean,
I agree, but I also thought Gibbs was too good for it too.
Well, I do, but the problem with Gibbs, I think Gibbs is, if not the best running back in the NFL, number two.
Yeah.
I think Bijan I would probably rate number one, and Gibbs
Yeah.
I'd probably rate number two. I'd rate him ahead of Saquon. But where he falls behind Saquon, I don't think he can handle the touches that Saquon gets, the level of touches. So you have to be wary of, certain guys just can't have the volume. And I think Gibbs is in that category. But explosion wise, I think Gibbs is one or
That's
two.
fair. They're different. They're different types. I agree. I'd feel better giving Barkley 330 carries than Gibbs. That makes sense. All right, let's go to Jerry. What's up, Jerry? Thanks for the big super chat, brother. Appreciate you. Hope you're doing well. I know you mentioned you were under the weather a little bit. Hope you're doing good, Jerry.
By the way, and real quick, just to finish on, sorry, because I was.
Oh yeah, go ahead. My bad. I know you were.
To finish on Epinesa, he had a pec, a foot, and a neck.
Oof.
So I don't even know what he failed for, and he also had a concussion. So, Cleveland backed out of the deal after the physical. Now, obviously, the Eagles signed him, so he passed the physical. And all teams are different, but that's a pretty significant list. So I got to see if he's healthy.
Fair enough. That is a significant list of injuries there. All right, here's Jerry says this. If JC plays good and if JH doesn't look good, I'm trading JC. I don't know if I follow that logic. Anthony.
What is that logic? So if Jalen Carter plays well, and if Jalen Hurts doesn't look good, I'm trading Jalen Carter? I don't get it. Do you get it?
I guess in theory, to get a first-round pick, the defense might be good enough without Carter, and then you can make a move for a quarterback?
Maybe.
I don't know. Jerry, you can clarify. Anthony Gargano reported that McKee is going through an injury and they're bringing him along slowly. Has J-Mac heard anything about that?
Well, he's practicing every day. They aren't limiting his reps, so I haven't even heard an inkling. Like, this is not the time of year where you'd be pushing guys. As Mekhi Lemon's a perfect. Anybody gets Markel Bell wasn't practicing yesterday. If you have an ingrown toenail, they're going to say, sit this one out. So he's practiced every day. He's taken significant reps every day, whether they're second or third team. I'm surprised he hasn't looked like himself. So, maybe he's keeping it to himself. I don't know, but this is the time of year you'd be very, very cautious with any injury. And that's why I felt comfortable saying last week, Mekhi Lemon is not practicing again this spring because you don't push injuries in the spring. There's no reason. There's no reason to. So the fact that he's out there every day, has been out there every day, taking his normal workload, I don't see any evidence of it unless he's lying to the training staff but he hasn't looked like himself. I'll say that. You're muted.
Jerry followed up and he said this. All I'm saying is this defense is one of the best in the league, and a quarterback is more important than a defensive lineman.
Oh, yeah.
I get him saying what he's saying. I hear what he's saying. I mean, the defense could probably absorb a hit.
Well, they would definitely absorb the hit of losing Jalen Carter more than losing Jalen Hurts.
But I think in the scenario he laid out, he would be looking to replace Jalen Hurts, obviously. Get a first round.
If you're getting another first round pick and you already have the extra first round pick, the more first round picks, the easier it is to get up in the draft. But I don't like that as a strategy simply because you're almost projecting that you're going to move on from the quarterback. So I never liked that as a strategy because whatever happens with Jalen Hurts, if he plays poorly, if they decide to move on, the next quarterback is very there's not good odds that they're going to live up to his standard what he was playing well. Now, if you get it right, the evaluation, there's a chance you get even better, but I'm an odds guy. And you see some of these top 10 quarterbacks in recent seasons, teams talk themselves in. And now you got all the hype about this quarterback class coming up. Other than the kid from Oregon, Dante Moore, I don't think any of them are legit top 10 picks. Now, maybe they play great in college, and that can change, just like all the hype with Cade Klubnik and Drew Aller turned into their day 3 guys. It could turn into a day 3 guy, turn into a top 10 pick. But I'm very wary in this era picking quarterbacks in the top 10 for 2 reasons. One, they're always overvalued. And 2, nobody has any patience to develop these guys. If I'm the Eagles, I am doing everything humanly possible to figure out how I can get the most out of the shelf life I have left with Jalen Hurts.
We'll see what happens with that. Good stuff. Appreciate everybody being here today. Here's Brando Shreds, another super chat. Thank you, Brando. He says this: I met Goddard in 2018 after he was drafted. Tall? Yes. Imposing physical specimen? Not really. It's fair to assume Stowers can add to his frame like Goddard did.
Yeah, I certainly. Yeah, I said that. He's got the frame to add weight and add strength, and I think he will. And I think that's why I'm very high on that pick long term. I'm not necessarily as high short term. Because everything I've heard about the kid, including meeting him, he's very smart, which should make some sense, going to Vanderbilt, being a former quarterback. So he's very smart from a football savvy standpoint. He understands offense as a whole better than most tight ends because he played quarterback. His athleticism is off the charts. And he's got a willingness. Everybody says he has a willingness to block. And that was sort of the knock on Dallas Goedert. Like when he was at South Dakota State, he was the best player they had. So he was never asked to block. He was just a receiver. And he showed up and he had a willingness to do it. And he turned into one of the better blocking tight ends in football. And had, unfortunately kind of fell off a cliff from that aspect last year. So hopefully he can rebound. But yeah, I don't think there's any reason Eli Stowers can't develop into a very good tight end. I just warn people that it's probably going to take some time.
Fair enough. Good stuff. All right, Johnny Mac. John, yesterday Jalen Hurts spoke with the media. A couple other players. I heard Cam Jurgens. Jonathan Grenard spoke. There was a couple other guys. What did you make of any of what the players had to say? Anything stick out to you? Obviously, your question, I believe it was your question to Jalen Hurts, was a good one. Got some people talking. So nice job by you. But your takeaways from the player.
That's where it turned. Jalen was having a good time. I started. Yeah, there's a strategy to it. So I started it off with, the softball, how the spring has gone, which was not well, but he answered the question. Basically, another new system, putting everything together, which is true. And then I asked him because I wanted to know why he continued to work with Scott Loeffler and on his own time, guy who was essentially fired from the Eagles, no matter how you want to frame it. Which is rare. And it was short. I just wanted to create some continuity there. Well, how are you creating continuity? He's not here. And now you got Parks Frazier. So I asked him how that was going.
I guess just in his training regimen.
Well, I mean, his training regimen has been, it's evolved over the years from Quincy Avery, and then he went out with Tom
Tom House.
House and Adam Daydew. So that continues to evolve. Obviously, couldn't work with Scott Leffler last year because Scott Leffler was the coach, and you're not allowed to his position coach, and those guys are not allowed to work. That's why you work with other people on your personal time. It was just interesting from my standpoint that it seemed to be a passive aggressive shot at the Eagles, um, saying, "Hey, why didn't you keep this guy?" Basically, um, obviously likes Scott Leffler, or at least likes working with him. So he's the quarterback. Why don't you let him have his quarterback coach? Which I think there's some relevance to that. I think they should have considered that. If he wanted that, how does it hurt? You can find another role for Parks, who's close to Nick Sirianni. But for whatever reason, Nick explained that he liked it from the standpoint that Parks has experience in both sides of the fence. Obviously, the Eagles' old offense and the new offense. He worked with Mike McDaniel. And he liked the bridge. So we'll see how it works out. But yeah, I still think it was a bit of a passive aggressive shot at the Eagles. And then the other part, was asked about the ESPN story kind of shut down there. I asked, he was given the opportunity. Jeff asked that question, Jeff McLean gave him the opportunity to respond to the story. And he said, I never really asked for an opportunity to respond to anything. So just let it live and go do my job. So kind of shut that down. Then I believe Zach asked him, which I thought was a good answer. One, because it confirmed my report, but the idea is a heavy hand in the offense and he was resistant. And as I said on the show, what I was told is, well, he was resistant because they didn't practice it. So they shipped it to a lot of this stuff in season. I think a lot of people don't realize that for whatever reason. A lot of stuff they're doing now, they shifted to doing in season last year. And I was told he was resistant, but he was resistant because they didn't practice it. So his answer was, in Jalen speak, I'm always open to growth. I'm always open to improving. I think a lot of it is whether we put our time on task. They didn't practice it.
Right.
What are we exhausting? What are we repping? Didn't practice it. And so that's why he pushed back. So he's looking forward to seeing how training camp goes so we can just continue to build on the foundation. So he essentially confirmed, I don't have a problem with it. I got a problem with it if we do it in season when we didn't practice it.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
that's kind of consistent with what you were saying too a little. I think it was either earlier this summer or during last season.
Saying.
Yeah.
He confirmed it. So, which I agree.
I do. One thing I do love about Jalen Hurts is he's got a very he does have a very mature way to answer questions that aren't as easy to answer. Like I thought his answer to the AJ Brown thing again was just perfect. I mean, he's like, I'm not in a position to challenge anybody's perspectives. I just think he handles stuff like that super well.
Yeah, he does. And every once in a while he gives you, but you got to listen and you got to hear a little Easter egg because people kind of tune it out. But yeah, they didn't practice it and they tried to do it in season. So why would he be comfortable with it? I maintain. So for people that say I don't defend Jalen Hurts, I've defended that aspect from day one. I'm like, why would he be comfortable doing that?
Do you think this is a long enough time for him to get comfortable with this?
Well, we're gonna see, but I'm certainly that's what training camp is for. So as long as you do it in training camp, then the excuse is gone. But they didn't do it in training camp last year. And that is, I think, where the pushback came from. It's like, well, we didn't rep this. We didn't, there's no time on task. So why are we doing it? Essentially was the pushback. And it was real. And I agree with them. But that's the second part, though, is that, if that's same thing with Jeff Stoutland, I also see that side of the fence. Look, the head coach is the head coach. As long as he's the head coach, you got to listen to the head coach. And that's what they want to do. You got to make the best of it.
Has your confidence level increased or wavered or declined or anything in his ability to run the offense that they're seemingly trying to run based on some of those answers and what you're seeing?
Well, on field, no. But again, it's been all the quarterbacks for the most part. Off the field, I think, yeah, because he's willing to try this time because he's going to, that's all they did in the spring, pretty much working from under center and doing all this stuff. So he's going to have that time on task. But whether they can do it, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it, as you know. I'm not a fan of it because I don't like copying other people. And you're never going to do it as well as Kyle Shanahan, or Sean McVay. So
I just don't like, what other alternatives did they have? Did you believe that what they were doing would continue to work at the level they needed it to work at to be successful? That's where I struggle with it, because I'm like, I get what you're saying, or why do you want to run something that doesn't fit the players? But the part of it I struggle with is I did believe that the shelf life of the offense they were running was reaching its end, and you started to see that more and more. Now, that's not to say they couldn't have rebounded or done it better. I don't know.
Well, I think there's a far. I think there's a far more comfortable middle ground to that. There's no law against going under center 6 times a game instead of 4 times a game,
right?
And taking out tush pushes. I don't count tush pushes. So, throw it 3 times under center instead of running it every time. I think there's a comfortable middle ground that you could have. They were arguably the most successful team in football for 3 years. I mean, you could say the Chiefs because they won 2 and the Eagles won 1, but in my opinion, the Eagles outplayed the Chiefs in the first one, dominated them in the second one. Either or, they're 1 or 1A as far as teams in the NFL for a 3-year span. Even if you had that crappy year in between where they still made the playoffs with a crappy defense.
I think I got to give the Chiefs number 1 and the Eagles number 2.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I wouldn't argue
that crappy year. The Chiefs won it that year, right? Yeah, they won it.
Yeah, they won it. Yeah, back to back. They won 2. The Eagles won 1. And you're right. I mean, they're more consistent.
No, so I get your point, though. Your point is well taken. Sorry, I'm just being. Yes.
But I think there was more shelf life to squeeze than panicking because WIP callers are upset. I know I'm being a little bit facetious there, but I think they're worried about they're little rabbit ears.
Fair enough. John, any other comments from players yesterday, or Jalen, if there's any other thing we missed that stood out to you that's worth discussing here on Birds 365?
Just Cam is not miserable. Similar to what I said about Landon. The fact that they're healthy, I think, is the biggest positive, or healthy-ish. Said you're never healthy, but
you did have a great answer on that. Like, I'm in the NFL. I'm paid to exhaust every avenue and basically to get healthy and to perform at my best.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's part of the luxury. These guys, their job is to stay healthy, basically, or get their body up to optimal performance level. And they have, trainers and nutritionists and chefs, and yeah, take advantage of it. But I mean, Chris Cooper, when I talked to Chris Cooper, he mentioned the same thing because Chris was a player for a long time. And so it's another thing the offensive linemen are excited about because they know he knows what they go through. And he specifically said he had been injured where he didn't have an opportunity to have an off season, and you can't take care of your body because you're rehabbing. And he said it sucks, and it makes sense. I remember that. I still remember a conversation. Lane Johnson is huge with toe extenders.
Yeah, the toe spreaders.
Toe spreaders, yes. Toe spreaders. Thank you. He's huge. I mean,
I think there is some pretty good science behind that.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, in fact, there was a funny moment where poor Olivia Freiner, Nolan Smith, he taught Nolan Smith that trick, and I don't know, she had sandals on, kind of weird moment for Nolan Smith. He said, like your feet your toes are all scrunched up. And so when you're sitting, like Lane will tell you, even when you're sitting like we're sitting, you should always try to extend your toes on your own. But I always remember he said, playing football when your feet hurt sucks. And I in my short time as a youth, I mean, it sucks. It does. Doing anything when your feet hurt sucks. But can you imagine playing football when your feet hurt? And just a little thing like that. Now with Cam and Landon, much more serious things on top of it. But yeah, get the toe extenders. Lane swears by them.
Sealed face. Prince says, "What do you mean by extend your?"
Spread them out.
Prince, it's like a little piece of rubber, and it goes in. It's like basically like having a flip flop on between every toe.
Yeah,
it pushes them all apart.
But even if you don't have them, spread your toes. Spread them.
Yeah, you got to spread.
Right.
That's the advice of the day from John McMullen. Spread your toes.
Well, it's from Lane. It's not from me. Spread your toes.
Toe spreaders. Here we are, toe spreader. Let me see if I can show the people what the heck a toe spreader is. All right. Yeah, it actually does make perfect sense though that Lane would do that, because obviously, he needs a lot of leverage as a player like that. I can't believe I'm going to show a picture of toes.
There you go. They're nice, man.
On the show right now.
And they got top tier toe spreaders down there.
I'm sure they do. They got probably elite level toe spreaders at the Philadelphia Eagles complex.
But extend was the wrong word, correct? So he's right. Toe spreader.
What did you call it?
Your toe. Extend. You can't extend.
There you go, folks. You can put those in between your toes and you extend them or you spread them or whatever the hell you want to do with your toes. I don't know. It's up to you guys to do what you want with your toes. But all right, good stuff, Johnny Mac. We got Caden Steele coming up here. Looking forward to that. 2 days of minicamp. Now we're on summer break, John, for this team. And I don't know that we saw enough to feel optimistic or confident about the offense, but we've at least seen some football in the spring here, and now we await for training camp in the summer.
Yeah, late July. We still don't know when. We do know because the Patriots put out their training camp schedule. So I believe August 19th and 20th are the joint practices up in Foxborough. So, and those are going to be hyped up with AJ and all that. So Elliot will describe them as must-win practices, which I don't agree with, but there'll be a lot of hype with AJ and all that kind of stuff. But it'll come soon, but it'll be late July when the Eagles report to training camp.
And the schedule from now until then is basically nothing. Are the players off? Do they have to be at the facility at all? Is there anything going on? No, right?
Nope. Off. I mean, the coaches will be back sooner, but Nick wants them to go on vacation too because it's a grind when it gets going. And he'll be back, probably a week, 10 days early to get ready for the players arriving. But then this is the time where every GM in the world is hoping their phone doesn't ring with some bad news. You're left to your own devices.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll see Nick Sirianni down in the Jersey Shore or somewhere.
Oh, you'll see him down there. I'm not
Yeah.
going to tell you what town, although I think Mike Gill gave it
Mike
away.
Gill already told you. We might see some Cooper DeJean too. I'm seeing him all over the place.
Well, he's got his cowboy cheerleader girlfriend, so he might be. Coop goes back to Iowa a lot. I'm sure he'll be in Texas.
Yeah, we hit Iowa, Texas, Philly, Texas, Iowa, Philly. All right, good stuff, Cooper DeJean. Appreciate everybody being here today. Don't forget to hit that like button. We got the great Caden Steele set to join us here on Birds 365. You can follow him at Caden_Steele19. Read all his work at NJ.com. Caden, welcome to the program this Thursday morning, my friend. Fresh off of 2 days of mandatory minicamp. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. Excited to talk some football.
Yeah, let's talk some football. No gossip to talk about this week, Caden. So that's good. But I will say, and I don't want to murky the waters because you're down there every day as well. But I was thinking about it. We only got 4 practices. But this offense was not good, man. It was not good.
No. And I want to take away too much of saying, just because they were bad this spring doesn't mean they won't be.
No.
Obviously, they're
I put all the context, learning a new system. Guys are in and out. Devontae Smith isn't there. Mekhi Lemon's not. Eli Stowers didn't do anything.
It was rough, though. I mean, and not just the first string offense with Jalen Hurts, but Tanner McKee and Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, I thought was good. Like one
practice. Practice.
But other than that, he was pretty rough as well.
Yeah. I think all the quarterbacks, the word I used, Caden, was hesitant, except for Andy.
Yeah.
But when Andy makes quick decisions, but he's also going to throw the ball no matter what. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes somebody's jumping the route. Like Ambry Thomas, I think, picked him up yesterday. The ball was inside on the sideline. Mm-hmm. He didn't play well. He had one good practice, to your point. All the quarterbacks didn't play well. All of them.
Especially not Tanner. I'm not trying to pick on Tanner, but Tanner McKee had a pretty rough spring. I mean, I think the hype has gone out of hand in the first place, but compared to like even what we saw in preseason a year ago, and sometimes when he's put in those regular season games, he just didn't look the same. Like he
didn't look good. Now we had, and I don't know if this is true, so I hate to bring it up, but somebody said Anthony Gargano said he was dealing with some kind of injury. Now, I had not heard that. I don't know if you heard anything of that.
But I mean, he's practicing.
That's what I'm saying. He's taking his full. Yeah. If you have a toenail, they're going to say, sit this out. He's taken all his reps, whether they're second, he finally got second team reps, third team reps, full allotment. He just wasn't good. I don't think it's injury related. He wouldn't be practicing.
No, I mean, I'm not going to dispute the report necessarily, but I'd find it very odd if they kept letting him practice. If it was anything, I mean, even if it was general soreness and he needed a day off.
Yeah, right. This is the time of year where
nothing.
If you have a cough, sit it out. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
And if that report is true and he is hurt, I mean, then I question why they're letting him practice. That would just be a weird.
Exactly.
So that's interesting. But going back to the court, I thought Jalen, I mean, I don't think he particularly had a good spring, but I thought yesterday he had some encouraging throws. I know he had to pick the Tyreek Woolen who undercut, that like an intermediate route in the middle of the field of Goddard and picked it off. But I thought the one throw to Dontavian Wicks.
That was a hell of a play by Woolen.
That was a great play by Woolen. I mean, that was a tight throw. I mean, he tried to force it in the Goddard and Woolen read it and picked it off. I mean, what a great spring from him. But I thought Hurts had a nice throw to Dontavian Wicks yesterday where he kind of layered it over Chase.
He did.
And that was a really encouraging throw. I mean, I thought yesterday was a little better than the other days. It wasn't great again, but I thought it was a little better. So I guess that's a sign of encouragement.
I counted 3 downfield completions, Caden, and 6 dump offs to Will Shipley.
Yesterday, yeah. Yeah, a lot of it has been it's been checkdowns. I think the downfield completions, some of them that he made were pretty, but overall, it's been a lot of the check down. I mean that maybe that's partly just to do with, and especially yesterday. I mean, you didn't have Devontae Smith. You're asking Elijah Moore to get open.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have Devontae Smith and Mekhi Lemon, and you're like,
Yeah,
oof. What the first team was Wicks, Moore, and Hollywood.
yeah. And I think yesterday was the first day. I mean, not the first day, but I think you see something with Wicks. I think he can get open. I think he does have some route running ability, and I think to some
My
level, I
problem
mean,
with Wicks is he's a receiver who drops the football.
yeah, and you've even seen it in practice. He's bobbled some passes. The one sideline catch yesterday, I think that he didn't ultimately come down with. That was a difficult catch. So I'm not going to knock him too hard. But even some of the catches that he ultimately ends up pulling down, he bobbles it initially and then
Yeah.
corrals it. So, yeah, I think that's a concern. I know the drops went down in Green Bay last year, but, I mean, his targets also went down at the same time. He's going to have to be a more consistent pass catcher to ultimately reach his potential because, I mean, they're high on his ability to create separation. I mean, you got Nick Sirianni comparing him to Keenan Allen. I'm not trying to laugh.
Oh my Lord.
It's very
Yeah,
lofty.
that was I talked about that yesterday on the show. I'm like, I don't think that helps when you compare burgeoning players. I mean, there's a chance Wicks turns into a pretty good player, but he's got 3 years, he's topped out at 39 receptions, I believe, with the Packers.
Yeah.
I don't think you should be comparing him to Mr. Third Down, who has been this dominant possession type receiver who just, is money on the most important down in football. I just don't think that those expectations help developing players.
No, not at all. And I think that's the thing with Wicks is like the biggest problem is he hasn't been consistent in his career. Keenan Allen was the definition of consistency throughout his career. And they're polar opposites. I think you've seen flashes with Dontavian Wicks. I mean, that Thanksgiving game against the Lions last year, I remember he pulled down a touchdown. That was a really great catch. And I think he overall had a really good game against the Lions. He's had really good moments in his career where it's like, oh, he's got something here. You can tap into more, but it hasn't been fully tapped into. And part of that is because of the lack of consistency and the drops. And he wasn't able to get ahead of those guys in Green Bay. He wasn't able to surpass Romeo Doubs or Jaden Reed or Christian Watson. I know those guys were all drafted earlier than him. He was a 5th-round pick ultimately, but I think the expectations should be tempered. I think, is there a chance he's a really solid number 3 wide receiver, a number 3 wide receiver, and maybe a slight upgrade over Jahan Dotson as just as a route runner and being able to get open more consistently? I think there's a chance, but I mean the Keenan Allen stuff. I don't mean to laugh. It's just that time of the year. Even coaches, they're just we're trying to fill space here. Nick's trying to fill space, and I think he's trying to hype up his guy, but.
Yeah, I think John's right, though. I think it has sometimes a reverse effect of you're setting expectations on a player. But whatever. Caden, what do you think the common denominator is that all quarterbacks are struggling? Is it just the implementation of a new offense? Is Sean Mannion not doing a good job of teaching it, or the players not as good? What to you is the common denominator for why it's looked consistently poor this spring?
I think John used the word hesitant. And I think that's fair to say, especially sometimes with Jalen, and especially with Tanner. I mean, just holding the ball too long before letting it rip. I mean, honestly, and I don't know necessarily the cause. I just think they've all been pretty inaccurate. Unlike even sometimes when wide receivers have been coming back on an out route or something. I know Jalen. I don't know if maybe it wasn't Jalen, so I don't want to say the quarterback, but. There was one yesterday where Danny Gray was wide open. And I don't know whoever thought. I think it might have been Jalen, but just completely missed it. I mean, Andy Dalton's had some really bad misfires.
I think the interception was a Dalton misfire because that was probably there, but he threw it inside when he should have thrown it on the outside shoulder, and it turns into an interception.
Yeah. I mean, they've all been misfiring. I think hesitancy, lack of accuracy, and maybe it's because they're thinking a lot. They're still learning this new scheme. I think there's been some times where I think where Jalen has been testing the middle of the field a little bit more at times, and sometimes I think that has led to some stuff. I mean, obviously, there's been some stuff out there that he isn't necessarily comfortable with it. I think they're pushing that more, and I don't know. I don't want to like read too much into the offense being bad in the spring because it is a new scheme. They are learning it. Like there's going to be some ugly moments, and there has been some ugly moments. So I don't know.
Is there to Zander's point though, Caden? Is there a chance, because there's been so much Sean Mannion hype, I think people have gotten over the hump already and they don't question that hire anymore. And I'm like, I'm starting to question it after this spring, to be honest. Because I'm like, all right, now I'm back in the mode of this guy's been a coach for 2 years. He didn't even have a position coach job until last year, and he only got that because Tom Clements, who's a legendary quarterbacks coach, retired. And now he's the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, have we just turned the page on that too quickly as a group?
Yeah, I think so. Nothing I saw this spring makes me concerned that Sean Mannion can't be a good offensive coordinator, that Jalen can't run this system, that the offense is going to be that, because I think it's just way too early to be putting up a flag and be like, just because, there are some ugly moments in the spring when they're still very early in the install and like defenses are always ahead of offense, especially when you have a defense with so much chemistry. And there's not as much chemistry this year because there is no more A.J. Brown here. And Devontae missed a practice and Mekhi Lemon's been out. And like Eli Stowers is still developing. Like, I don't think the offense is a complete picture yet. So when there's ugly days, I'm not going to really read too much into the practice until we start seeing it first week of training camp, joint practices. Then I feel like we could get more of a feel. But to come out of the spring because of what Jordan Mailata said or what Lane Johnson said about Sean Mannion or anyone else and declare that he is going to be the world's best offensive coordinator, that he's going to be the next Kyle Shanahan, I think it's a little premature, and it's okay to still have some skepticism because he's never done this before. He's never run this system on his own. I know Chris Cooper talked about how he's in Minnesota. He had his own playbook. Obviously, it feels like he's been preparing for this job and that he is smart. But when you're calling the shots and they become live on game days in the NFL against defensive coordinators who have a lot more experience, I think we'll see how he adjusts. I mean, I think there's a chance that he's going to struggle early on, especially as they implement this offense. I think there's a chance Jalen Hurts is going to struggle early on. And I think, like we talked about earlier with Dontavian Wicks getting these comps to Keenan Allen, I think it's a little unfair to Sean Mannion for everyone. I mean, I get they want to hype him up and they want to make him feel good and they want to make people believe in him and they're trying to express that. And I get that from a player and coach perspective, but like to put all this pressure on him when most likely there's going to be some ugly periods during the season because he's a first-time coordinator calling plays for the first time and the Eagles are running a new system. And then when it starts to have a bad streak, say he has 2 or 3 rough games, everyone's going to be calling for his head. And I feel like in a sense, that's a little unfair. I mean, it's his first time. He might be a great coordinator. He might be really good by the end of the year. But we don't know that yet. And I feel like it's fair to be skeptical. And I think he's entering with more expectations and hype than normal for a guy.
Well, yeah, it's kind of the hype thing again with Keenan Allen. Yeah. And then you got Jordan Mailata calling him an evil genius. And Jalen Hurts is going out there completing 6 of 14 passes in an environment where you should be completing 12 of 14 passes. That's credit to Elliott. I don't know. Elliott charts the statistics, but that's really bad in a practice environment. Yeah. When you're under 50%. Now, to your point, Devontae's not there. Mekhi's not out there. We told you the first team receivers and who they were. You no longer have A.J. Brown, but it's all geared towards the offense. And while I say now I'm going to go to the positive, which is the defense, which has been lights out. Reek Woolen, MVP of the spring for me. He that last series, it was the final series of minicamp where they didn't complete a pass. and that was the Woolen interception, which was a brilliant play. Showed off his speed, his length, everything. Just kind of baited, I would say, Jalen. Had a sack if you're going to blow it dead. And then a bunch of incompletions. This defense has looked like a world beater. Now, how much of that is yin and yang of, well, the offense stinks, the defense good. So ultimately, you got to say, you got to get to a point where, well, the defense is really good. Maybe they're not going to be the best defense in the history of football, and the offense is still good. And right now we have the offense was so bad. Does that kind of cloud how good the defense was? Does that make sense?
Yeah, honestly, I think the offense's performance, and once because they're putting in this new system, of course, there's going to be some bad moments. But I think, it's really tough for this offense to go against this defense. I mean, maybe this offense would be looking better if they had like I don't mean to pick on them, but like the Arizona Cardinals defense out there. Maybe life would be a little easier. I know there's no real pass rush. It's hard to evaluate those guys, but I think it's even more impressive when you just get to watch it practice because there is no real, they're not pads or anything. They're not getting it's so impressive to watch the linebackers in the secondary. I thought the secondary has been awesome this spring. I mean, that's the part that
did Quinion give up a downfield completion this entire spring?
I don't think so. I thought Cooper looked good. And another point, I think Drew Makuba has looked good. I think the safeties have looked fine. I mean, even when they've been throwing out, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. might never get on the field, but I
love that dude, man.
He's developed into
smart
a player.
He
could be a starter.
Instinctive.
He's
like I shouldn't say a little. He's probably a little bit taller. He's like he's exactly like Nakobe Dean. Just instinctive, always in the right place. Some coverage limitations, but it's all linebackers, let's be honest.
He's good.
Yeah, I think he could be an NFL starter. I believe that.
You were saying Nakobe Dean. I was going to say kind of like a little bit like TJ Edwards too, where he's just smart.
Yeah, TJ, same thing with TJ. Yeah. TJ's a little bit bigger, but you weren't here. I love TJ Edwards because I saw him grow up from undrafted free agent to damn good player. And that linebackers more than any other position outside quarterback, I think it's about football IQ and natural instincts. Because we had Devin White here, and Devin White's like the ultimate athlete, but he was never in the right spot. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if you run a 4.4 if you take a false step. Whereas if you're Trotter or Nakobe or TJ, and you know where the play's going, all of a sudden your 4.7, 4.8 turns into 4.4. I think Luke Kuechly's the best ever at that. If you watch old NFL films of Luke Kuechly and they got him mic'd up, he calls out every play.
Yeah.
Every play.
And it's a general point with this defense is they have a lot of smart football players. Like Zach Bond's really smart. Cooper DeJean is really smart. Quinion is really smart. I know a lot of Quinion is also technically refined. He's a really good athlete. I mean, he tested really well when he came out, and the athleticism has translated, and he has all the gifts you want, but don't undersell his IQ. I mean, he is an extremely smart football player as well. They have a ton of smart football players. Jonathan Grenard is a really smart football player that they just added to this defense. So when you add, there's a lot of guys with a ton of physical talent, and they're also smart, and they're also well coached. You see it in practice, and I think it almost clouds how the offense has performed because we're going back to the secondary. I mean, Jalen and Andy and Tanner, I mean, they've all struggled to a certain degree, but then I'm watching practice, and we even the second string, the third string defenses with their linebackers and the DBs, they're not allowing much space. I mean, these wide receivers and tight ends in practice are not creating consistent separation against this defense, especially the first team unit. I mean, Tyreek Woolen's had some awesome reps. I know the interception was awesome, but some awesome reps against Devontae Smith. Same with Quinion Mitchell when Devontae was out there. And I think the entire secondary has looked really good. The linebackers have looked good. And this is before we could see this defensive line come together now with Jonathan Gennard and Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter. And then you had AJ Epinesa yesterday, who I'm not saying he's not like some all-pro player, but he's a really good early down player that could be a versatile piece on your D-line.
Gives him some size. I like the size. Now, because they're undersized everywhere on the edge, but he's like 6'4", 6'5", 275. Like he's got legitimate size. Yeah. But I don't know if he's healthy. I mean, he signed with Cleveland, failed his physical, had a bunch of injuries last year. So we have to see. What the hell's going on with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka? I tried to find out. I'm like, he signs a 1-year deal. He's not holding out. I mean, what
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. I mean, that was my first thought though, is when they signed Epinesa, because they have Ebiketie here too, and I think Ebiketie is a solid player as well, probably like in that same tier of players like Epinesa is, and I think Epinesa is a better player than Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. My first thought is like, do they think Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is not going to be on the roster this year? Like, do they? I mean, I don't think he stops you from signing a player like AJ Epinesa if you think he's a better player and you think he's healthy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
it is weird though. I mean, I don't know why he's not. He hasn't been out there, but
I think it doesn't bode well for Brandon Graham either, by the way, that AJ's here. But we'll see how that shakes out as well. Also, they finally, since you brought up AJ, Michael Jordan, not the basketball player, but the football player. You know what? That tells me that they got to look at Miles Hinton and Micah Morris and said, well, we better get some veteran stability here. I'm kind of surprised it took him that long because he was a rookie camp as a tryout player. And maybe he just didn't want to go through all the spring nonsense. But he started 45 games. I think that might be a guy who makes the team. You got to see how he looks, obviously. But, I mean, they have nothing on the offensive interior when it comes to depth.
No.
And obviously that's a concern with, even though Cam looks happy and jovial, Landon, I saw Landon out there. They look much. They don't look as miserable, which tells me they're healthier. So you hope they're on the field all the time, but their history is their history, and you're probably going to need somebody at some point to play. I thought that was a good signing as well, Michael Jordan.
Yeah. It makes sense. I think I wrote about that earlier this month after the draft when I looked at the roster. I mean, I was like, they're really thin on the interior offensive line. And I know Brett Toth got, ripped throughout his time here, but I thought he played well last year.
Oh, he played very well last year. Very well.
You lost that presence, and he was like the one guy. He had experience. He was your one veteran on the interior. Now he was gone. And I know they're high on Drew Kendall, and I think that's the one young guy that they feel good about, like they have something there. But that's just one backup interior offensive lineman that he feels like semi-okay about. But he's only got one game.
One start.
And
a meaningless environment, let's be honest.
So even though if you're high on him, you haven't seen him do it, consistently in the NFL. So you could be high on him and like his long-term development, but you needed another guy in there. Michael Jordan's played a lot of football. I mean, even last year, he started close to double-digit games in Tampa Bay. I mean, he started a lot of games in his career, started a lot of games for the Bengals early in his career. I don't think he's been particularly amazing as like a starter, but like you're asking him to be, the fill in the game here and there for Landon Dickerson or Tyler Seaton, whoever, if injuries happen. And I think that is a smart move. Like you said, he's got to come in camp and prove that he can, play in the system and play well. But like, they had to make a move like this. Honestly, I would even add more veteran depth if there was another guy out there that they liked, because they need to get more veteran depth. I'm not sure if Michael Morris or Miles Hinton, one, if they're going to be ready to play this year, two, if they're going to even make this roster. I mean,
the
late round picks, they need more depth. And I agree with you. I think that was the positive of yesterday is like Cam Jurgens was so positive. And if you were in the locker room covering this team last year, that guy was miserable, and I can't blame him. I mean, his back was probably in so much pain. He didn't want to talk to us. I mean, that guy was playing through so much last year, and he was miserable. But the year before, I thought Cam was, always pretty joyful and happy. That was more like the Cam Jurgens we saw in 2024. Obviously, we got to see him play. I mean, doesn't mean he's going to come back and play well, but it's a sign that he feels well. We didn't get to talk to Landon, but we'll talk to him, I'm sure, in training camp. We'll see how he feels. That is the most important part of this season, the offensive line's health and how they play. They're running this new outside zone scheme, and everyone is so excited.
They are excited about it, too. They're excited about it. They really are.
But it's not going to work if your interior offensive line's banged up and they can't block it. Cam Jurgens talked how the scheme lets them use their athleticism a little more because of the angles and some of the stuff they had to do to get some of these blocks, to set some of these runs off. And they were able to do it in practice a little bit, and no context. I don't want to overhype it. But, like, if those guys are banged up, you're not going to be able to do what you want. And this outside zone stuff's not going to work. And the scheme that they want to run isn't going to come to full fruition. Those guys have to be healthy, and they have to play really well this year.
The only thing the offensive linemen weren't excited about, boy, Chris Cooper works them, man. Woo!
It's a different.
The tempo is different, man.
Yeah.
I was watching drills the other day with Barrett Brooks and G Cobb, and I was like, Lane. It was Lane's first day, so it was the first day. I was like, Lane wishes he could do this on Zoom because Stout's awesome, but he would sit and take a rep and then he'd teach, and it was slow. There was a lot of teaching, on-field teaching, and Chris Cooper's the opposite. He's like, obviously he's got more of a Chip Kelly mode where it's let's get as many reps in as possible, and then he'll go look at the film and try to teach from that.
Yeah. Maybe that'll be a good thing for this offensive line this year. Coming off
the tempo is really different. Really,
the legs feed the wolves, gentlemen. The legs feed the wolves.
Yeah. And it's got to be different. I mean, Chris Cooper, I think, talked about it himself. He's got to be a different guy than Jeff Stoutland. He comes from a different background. He can't try to be what Jeff Stoutland was to these players, and he is so different in terms of personality. I feel like Stoutland had a little more. I want to say, I mean, I'm not behind the scenes, so maybe Chris Cooper is this way, but Stoutland always was a little more like emotional and a little more. Chris Cooper, it seems like he's all business. He's very locked in, and like it's a very different approach, like you said. But the guys seem to be responding well to them. I think he mentioned, some of the guys, they text him about certain stuff in this scheme, and he responds to them, so they're reaching out to him. Cam Jurgens and Lane, and they both have spoken about excitement, at least about this new scheme that they're running and what it can do for the offensive line. And I think they knew.
Yeah, I think that I'm with you. I said that earlier in the show. To me, they'll erase a lot of the other issues. If they're a top 5 offensive line again, a lot of the other stuff will take care of itself.
Yeah.
And I think there's a chance that can happen because these guys are invested. I think that's the most. There's not many positives coming out of the spring for the offense. That's the positive I came up with. Those guys seem excited and invested.
Yeah, and these guys are full of pride. I mean, you have Jordan Mailata, who's been an All-Pro. Lane Johnson, who's been an All-Pro. Landon Dickerson, who's been a Pro Bowler. Cam Jurgens, who was, I'm not going to call him Pro Bowler last year, but the year before, he played at a really high level in 2024. They have a lot of pride, and they know. I mean, and I said last week they played. Maybe I was being a little too hard, but they didn't play to their standard last year. They were at best they were mediocre. I would say that, and that's just being kind. And I think they know that, and I think they know they got stagnant in terms of the scheme, and I think they know they didn't perform well last year for the most part, and they're motivated. I mean, this is a line that's considered on paper one of the most talented, and they didn't play up to that expectation, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And if you have a motivated offensive line who's bought into this new scheme, and these guys can get healthy, I don't see why not. I don't see why they're not a top 5 unit again. And if they are, I agree with you. It erases a lot of problems. It makes Jalen's life a lot easier. They could be more unpredictable if they can run the ball consistently, and that sets up the play action game. I think the run game is the key. And if the run game's good, it creates a floor for the offense. It buys the passing offense more time as well, especially if it's going to look different. It buys Jalen more time. I think it's the key. Can they run the ball well early in the year? And can that buy Sean Mannion and Jalen Hurts time to kind of, go through the wrinkles of this new passing offense and work out the kinks?
Yeah, but it's definitely the run game. I mean, last year, guys, the offensive line wasn't up to par, but they were like the second or third graded in pass protection offensive line in the league, depending on where you look. So they had A.J. Brown. They had a good pass blocking offensive line, and they still couldn't throw the ball well. I think it's going to come down to the run game once again this year. Caden, I'd ask you, what's your perspective right now on the overall roster? You know, I don't think the Eagles have made moves like a team like the Rams, who've added, Trent McDuffie and Myles Garrett, obviously, to an already good roster. But where do you see the Eagles roster right now? I know there's a couple spots that they're looking to improve, maybe safety being one of them. What's your perspective right now on the roster as a whole?
Yeah, I still think this is one of the best rosters in the NFL. I don't think it's as good as the Rams, obviously, after what they did to get Myles Garrett, Trent McDuffie, and those guys this offseason. But the starting, defense, I think, is up there with the best in the NFL, like top 5. I think safety is the only real concern, but I think they can really cover a lot of that up. Like I think Marcus Epps or Mike Carter, if they have to play, a nickel, I think Vic can cover a lot of potential problems up, and I think they can just be average to okay. Not every player in your defense is going to be amazing, but if Jahad Campbell comes back and he's healthy, and I think that's the big question, if he takes the next step with Zach Bond, you're going to have an elite linebacker duo, or very close to it. You have an awesome defensive line that's pretty deep now, I think, especially after the addition of Grenard. You knock Nolan Smith or Jalen Hunt down in the rotation. You had Epineza, you have Ebiketie, you have a deep defensive line, and your secondary has the chance to be one of the best in the league. At least at the corners. I mean, that's the best trio in football.
They can be. And I would add Jonathan Jones, man. They got a big-time backup corner now where you think about – and they started cross-training him at nickel now, and he's done that in the past. So I think he got a big-time – he might be the top backup at every single position.
Yeah.
And he can play.
The depth's better. I mean, for example, last year they had to play Adoree Jackson. It would have been ideal if he was your Jonathan Jones last year. You knock him to cornerback 4. You don't have to play Keely Orengo. You don't have to play Mac McWilliams, whoever that young corner would be if an injury happens. So you feel better about that. Feel really good about the defensive depth overall. Like I already talked about Trotter, our linebacker. I feel like if he had to play, he would play pretty well. I think the biggest question with this team, it comes with this offense, and it's the offensive line health with Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens, and does Mekhi Lemon, can he be a good number 2 wide receiver? Can he be close to what Devontae Smith was as a rookie? And it's hard to say that after he missed the spring because we didn't get to see him. And can Dontavian Wicks round out his game and be more consistent? Can Dallas Goedert stay at the same pace, or can he have an even better year than he did last year? I think the offense is the biggest question mark with the new scheme, and the scheme's not part of it. But I think overall on paper, you still look at the offense. They have Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. Still very good. So I think the roster overall is pretty good. There are some questions about safety depth, interior offensive line depth, but on paper, this is still one of the best rosters in football. And then now the question is, can the scheme maximize it? Can certain guys stay healthy? And if they can, and if the scheme is good, and Dickerson stays healthy, and Cam Jurgens stays healthy, and if the scheme can maximize Jalen Hurts, it could be one of the best teams in the league again. But it's a lot more what ifs with the offense. So that's where I'm at right now.
No doubt about that. At Caden_Steele19. Make sure you follow Caden on the X platform, nj.com. You can read all his stuff there. Has done a tremendous job with us breaking down the spring of the Philadelphia Eagles. It's over. We turn the page. Late July, they'll be back for training camp. Hopefully the foundation takes by then and sticks. But I'm with you. I guess we'll leave it there with Jalen's press conference. Got asked a bunch of tough questions. I kind of turned them with the Scott Lefter question. But I thought he answered, and I thought the most important part was, he did push back essentially last year. He said it in Jalen's fashion, but they didn't practice any of this stuff. In midseason, they said, we're going to do this. And Jalen was like, there's no time on task. In a lot of ways, I defend him with that because I agree with him. I'm like, why are you running shit? You're not practicing. At least they're practicing it now, and he's got a full spring, and he'll have a full summer, and it should be better from that standpoint.
It should be. And I think Jalen is really intentional about his messages whenever he talks. I mean, I don't think he ever says anything without a purpose. And in the first press conference with Sean Mannion, one of his first statements, he says that Sean Mannion had all the answers for me. And then I think Jeff McClain might have asked him a question about going under center more. And I don't remember the exact frame he had, but one of the things he wanted about that, going under center more, he wants to know why they're doing it and why this is going to work. And I think maybe there has been some hesitancy with Jalen, with the past coaching staff on why they're doing this, why they're making this adjustment now, and what's it going to do for the offense. And I think that is clear that there's been some pushback from him, but you can't blame him. There's been so much turnover here. He wants to be comfortable. I mean, he doesn't know why they're doing
it. By the way, why is that a negative? Who doesn't want to be comfortable? I don't think that's a negative. Like what? Oh, we lost Caden. What quarterback doesn't want to be comfortable? I don't understand why people make a big deal out of that.
Yeah, well, I think you're right, John. I mean, obviously you want to be comfortable, but there's expectations, John, that are natural here. Let's wrap it up with Caden. I think he dropped off there. We got him back. You're muted now, Caden, but no worries. Just your final thought, brother. We have a couple minutes left here. Your final thought here.
Yeah, I think the final thought is I think there's plenty of reasons to be encouraged about this team overall, from the defense being the number one reason and how awesome I think they're going to be this year. I think there's a lot of things that we can overhype. I don't think that's one of them. I think they've proven it the last 2 years, and another year in big scheme. I think there's every reason to believe that they're going to be awesome. And when it comes to this offense, I think there's still reason to feel hopeful and also skeptical. I mean, for skeptical and you don't believe, I kind of understand to some level, and I don't think you should be fully bought into the Sean Mannion. Like, let things play out. But I think there was an ugly spring from the offense, but it could get better. I think there's a reason to believe, even though Jalen Hurts hasn't done a lot of this stuff in this career before, that he could potentially do it. Because the one thing I think about Jalen is just, and I've said this over and over again, is there. I don't know if I can say from a football perspective, we haven't seen him run this type of scheme, and it's okay to say, like, I don't know if he can do it. But like at every level where he's been doubted, I think he's thrived. I think this could set up for a situation where he has a good year. There's questions about the scheme and all that, but ultimately, I think there's every reason to feel optimistic and positive about this team right now until we see more in it. And if it's ugly in training camp and it's ugly in the beginning of the season, I think it's time to raise the alarms. But I don't think that anyone should leave the spring feeling bad about this team. I think they're one of the best teams in the NFL going into the year still. And we'll see how things play out with this new scheme. And it should be fun.
Nice vote of confidence there from Caden. Caden, we appreciate you doing it today, man. As always, it's great to have you on our program. We appreciate it. Make sure you guys follow him at Caden_Steele19. Read all his work at NJ.com. Caden, thank you, brother.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, bud.
There's Caden joining us right here on Birds 365. Good show today, J-Mac. Minicamp now wrapped up and in the rear view mirror. And we move toward the, I guess this is the summer season now for the football team, and they won't return until late July for training camp. So all the spring work is officially done and dusted, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, it's over. It's in the books. I'm not quite as high on a lot of coulda, shoulda from Caden there. It could be a good off. Well, of course it could be, but I'm very high on the floor of this thing.
He's young, John, like me, so he still holds that that sense of
look, maybe I'm too negative because it's right. It's not that important. But you have both hands. I'm very high on the floor of this team. I don't think they're going to be bad because of the defense. The defense is so good. So there's a give and take, and I've been saying it throughout the whole show. There's a yin and yang. Well, is the defense that good because the offense is that bad, or is vice versa? It's probably in between, as it always is in life. It's a really good defense, and the offense is just finding its way, installing things, doing new things, and they're going to get better, which I think is fair. And Look, the spring is about the quarterbacks and the receivers. And the strength of this team offensively is going to be the offensive line in the running game. And so you've only seen a small window, and the positive is that when you mix in the offensive line and the running game, the passing game should get better. But for those hoping, and I think there's a lot of people hoping that this is going to be a high octane passing offense, that I feel pretty comfortable saying that's not going to happen. You know,
We'll see what it looks like.
looking for efficiency in the passing offense, in my opinion.
Yep. Johnny Mac, great show today, man. Your final thought here as we wrap up a Thursday. We'll have one more show this week, tomorrow, and then next week. I don't even know if I mentioned to you, we're not going to have shows next Friday. I got the wedding on Saturday, and I don't have anybody to help me out on Friday evening with the stuff I have before it. So we'll be off on Friday next week. We'll have a 4-day week next week, and then you'll have 2 weeks without me, J-Mac. I will be gone. I will be out of here for 2 weeks post-wedding. So we got some change coming in the next couple of weeks, or at least a different looking show for a couple of weeks, and then we'll be full steam ahead once that training camp rolls around.
All right. Well, we got plenty of time to talk next week, but
I fear that you will be forced to do lists, and you will be forced to do a lot of things.
A covenant is a wonderful thing, so we'll get a lot of that.
Yeah, that's true.
Congratulations to you for making the big leap.
Yeah, big covenant. All right, good stuff. All right, Johnny Mac, great show, man. I will catch up with you tomorrow. All right, brother.
All right, thanks all.
All right, thanks, J-Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Great show today. You can follow John at JF McMullen. Follow Caden Steele as well. I thought he was great today. Caden did a lot of good work throughout the spring practices. So obviously we got their perspectives on what they saw down at the spring camp or mini camp, mandatory mini camp. A little interesting, that guy who kept missing. I don't understand what happened with him, Joe Tryon Shoyenka, but we'll find out, I'm sure, more. I don't think it's very consequential. I don't know how much he was going to be here anyway, or if he was going to make the roster anyway. But I will take a couple comments, and then I got to run. I don't have a long time on Zander time today, so I'll talk to a couple of the great people of JAKIB Nation. Here's Texas T. What's up, Texas T? Devontae's getting married. Is that right? I didn't see that, but that's good for him. Daz Deal says, got to buy Zander some toe spreaders. I'm good on that. Don't need them. Rasputin, Zander's going to come back with the Italian flag Tango. If I can find that, I think I will purchase that. Correct. All right. Damn, it came for Prince. You're telling me, bro. You're telling me. I'm nervous for all this crap going on, man. I don't like the whole, I'm excited to be married. The wedding day gives me agita. Now, I had my fiance's grandmother. I was talking to her, and I'm like, I don't like to dance. And she's like, she gave me the old, when a grandmother tells you bullshit, she's like, oh, bullshit. I'm dragging you out into the dance floor. I'm like, oh gosh. Oh my goodness. So, Zay, you renting a Ferrari? I don't plan on it now. I got enough other expenses going on in Italy, Rich, that I'll be tending to. All right. I promise you will cry. Probably, Prince. I am a rather emotional person, actually. More so than I might lead to believe on the shows. I'm emotional about people I care very much about, for sure. Do I have my vows down yet? The vows are given to me by the Catholic Church, my friend. I do not have personal vows. All right. I just use the church vows because to me, that is full and complete. Actually, want to practice? I have to read. I have to memorize them. My phone background right now is my vows because I told you guys this story already. I have to memorize the vows. The priest will step out of the way and the spotlight will come on me and I will have to rattle off the vows. So I'm ready though. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to do. Abe, I've decided to not share them with you. All right. I will hold off. I will save those. Just walking in a circle. Yeah, Jerry, I'm gonna do that. I'll break out the Trump dance. That's about all I got, man. I really don't. Is there anybody else out there like me? Like I physically do not like dancing. I don't mind watching. I don't mind enjoying watching other people dance or being at, I don't mind that. I have no problem with people doing it. But you tell me to start moving my hips and my legs and everything. I'm like, all right, enough. Yeah, this is what everybody, hey, welcome to this is what everybody says. You just got to feel it. Abe, no. How about no? How about freaking no, Abe? The double jerk. Oh, man. It is a goofy ass dance. Just sidestep. Yeah, I can do that. I can do the sidestep. Right there with you. Yeah, I mean, it's just tragic. Not hurt season. The first goaltender that can't. Morty, I'm good, brother. I'm good. Here's Reyes. This offseason, Encilio has zapped all the happiness from you, Z. How the hell are you afraid to dance at your own wedding? I just don't like dancing, bro. It's all good. That's it. It has nothing to do with it being my wedding. I just don't like dancing. The only wedding I really danced at was my brother's. And it's because I was 3 sheets to the wind. That's exactly why. I just was 3 sheets to the wind. See, here's a guy that gets it. Michael. Thank you, Michael. This is precisely how to describe it. He says, I don't dance either, Z. My body doesn't work that way. Thank you, Michael. That's exactly how I feel. My body doesn't work like that. My guy, Michael, delivers it perfect. Get a couple drinks and I'm doing the Cupid shot. Not me, Jason. I was pretty sauced at my brother's wedding. I will admit that. I was pretty sauced there. Siglord says I dance, and that's why you like Sea Isle, Siglord. There you go. You wondered why I don't like Siglord, why I don't like Sea Isle. You're a dancing guy, which means you end up at the bars in Sea Isle. I am not a dancing guy and would prefer to sit on my porch or my back patio in a rocking chair with a cigar, and that's about it. There you go, Siglord. There you go. White boys can. I think some can. Not me, though. You could put me in that category. All right. Deshae Zander's drunk. I don't drink, dude. I don't know what Boone's Farm is. What is it, like a cheap wine or something? Cullen says, hope you're having a wonderful Xander. I've been listening to the whole show. I just got my wisdom. Damn. How old are you, Cullen? I never got my wisdom teeth removed. Here, let's see. Cullen is again on my page. I don't like dancing, so I do not want to dance at my wedding either. I'm with Zander. Here's Prince says, nah, you got to move your hips for the ladies. See, Prince, I think this is why a lot of dudes maybe got a little, I don't know. You know what they say? Jealousy is worse than cancer. You know, this may be why the guys didn't like me back in the day. Hopefully my fiance is not listening. You know, all these other dudes are dancing and they're trying to butter up the ladies on the dance floor. You know, I sat over there like a Don, and all the ladies came up to me. I don't know, Prince. Maybe that's the problem. I am a curmudgeon when it comes to dancing. I will happily admit that. Come on, Z. Swivel those hips and wave those hands like you just don't care. I don't like to do it, Mike. Make a fool. See, it's not really about, like, I'm not a self-conscious person. Like, I really don't give a rat's ass what people think of me. It's not really about that. I just physically don't like to dance. You know, like some people are like when they go to their room and they listen to some of their favorite music and they do the dance stuff. I never did that. You know? I never did that. Keese, Zander's leaning on the ropes like Ali. You're right, Keese. All right. I got no motion either. Colin. Oh, gosh. Mayan hits me with the Bad Bunny had some sweet moves. You hate to do it. I like to dance, but the dance floor is dramatic. Keese, very well said. Even if you like to dance, it's obnoxious. That's why Sig Lord gets up there and freaking embraces it. I don't even know what the hokey pokey is. Leaning on the ropes. All right, I gotta go. I am not an exciting white. If that's what it means to be an exciting white, dancing, then I am not that. I am an exciting white in many of other reasons, though. All right, for many of other reasons. All right, guys, love all you guys. I appreciate it. I got some videos dropping on ZK's Garage, hopefully this week. Let me show you guys the Batmobile has landed. The white Corvette has been traded for the black Corvette. Red calipers, full leather interior, black with red, tints on the windows. Are you kidding me? I'm going Batmobile now, man. All right. It's Batmobile season. Out with the white, in with the black car. Bruce Wayne, there you go. You have to do the milk to cow. I don't know about that. Okay. I don't know about that, Colin. All right. Zander plays the wine. What's that stupid thing where you do the thing with your hands? Yeah, I'm not doing that either, bro. I don't think I ever did that either. But, all right, guys. I love all you guys. I appreciate all you guys. I got to run. I got some stuff to do. I actually have to go to the, I mentioned it the other day, the government part of marriage. You know, it used to be between a man and a woman. Now it's between man, women, and your contract with the government. Mayan will love that. According to Mayan, the more government, the better. Come on, Mayan. I know you got a big brain between those ears. All right. I love all you guys. Hit that like button. See you next time, everybody.
EAGLES. Eagles.